Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Hello everyone and welcome to Action RPG. I'm your host Aaron, and for today's video we're headed to the world of Diablo 4. We just got done with our first ever campfire chat from the bigwigs over at Blizzard on Diablo 4. And I gotta say, a lot of the things that's been driving the community nuts, a lot of the things that have been driving me nuts were addressed during this stream. Now, not everything, but a lot of it. So we're gonna do a little dev chat D4 edition right now. And I've got the first question queued up. Let's talk Nightmare Dungeons. So what we're going to do there is we're going to increase the amount of XP that you get from Nightmare Dungeons. Our goal with this is to make Nightmare Dungeons more efficient to do than side dungeons. Right. Because they're designed to be more replayable.
And does that take into account, like, Nightmare Dungeons have essentially a travel time to get to them?
Right. So this is a great point. So in order to, when you think about efficiency, if you think about XP per hour or XP per minute, right. And we actually have telemetry on this so we can see, of course, what it looks like. You can't just look at the XP that you're getting from the Nightmare Dungeon, because you have to spend some of the time traveling to that Nightmare Dungeon. And in fact, Nightmare Dungeons are a variety of distances away from the nearest waypoint or teleport. So it actually varies depending on which Nightmare Dungeon you're going to. Right. And so that can also have the effect, if you're thinking about the efficiency aspect of it, of XP per hour or loot per hour, right. Of sort of making it hard to justify choosing a Nightmare Dungeon that's far from a teleport. True. So the second thing that we're going to do here is we're going to modify the way that sigils work so that they teleport you to Nightmare Dungeons on use.
So they teleport you, or do they create a place to, a waypoint to the dungeon?
They will create a waypoint that allows you to teleport. But yes, you'll be able to teleport to. That's an important distinction. Right. But the effect is that you'll be able to teleport to your Nightmare Dungeons, and you'll be able to loop from the end of a Nightmare Dungeon into your next Nightmare Dungeon. If you want to loop them again, you may have to leave the Nightmare Dungeon using. This is absolutely huge to go from Nightmare Dungeon for endgame without traveling between them. Right. And that allows us to have the XP. And you just bang them out. Calculate the XP buff to make sure that those are the most efficient to do, because we're removing the travel time aspect of it.
Okay, so we're improving the rewards from Nightmare Dungeons to make them more what the intention was. That's better loot. Yeah. We're removing the need to have a travel time, because a waypoint will appear in your party. Easier to jump between. Right. Like the waypoint one in particular sounds like a reasonably large change. So and more XP. What should expectations be about, hey, that sounds awesome, or at least for me, I'm responding, that sounds awesome. I don't know if they agree yet, but I think that sounds awesome. So what kind of timing, what range of timing are you thinking? It is, you know, Tiffany was just talking about, like, the kinds of things that we can do very quickly and easily. This isn't supposed to be one of them. It's a little, but this is something that's really important to many of our most dedicated players. And so we're working very hard on this right now, actually, and yesterday as well, to get it in before Season 1 launches. Oh. Boom. Now, when I'm playing D4, streaming, or just hanging out with the community, we always talk about the Renown system and going around and getting all the statues and side quests. How is this going to transfer with Season 1? Now we kind of have an answer. Listen to this. The notion that you only have to complete, that's kind of the thinking we have. So right now for Renown, what we're talking about is as we go into Season 1, when the amount of the fog of war that you've lifted on your map, the amount of the map that you've exposed going into the season in the Eternal Realm will be what you see in the season. So you don't have to go and reveal the map again. And the only capital city waypoints, I think, will be active, much like it is now. So, but you'll see them; they'll just be gray. So, because there's so much renown you get for claiming one, we still want you to go claim that waypoint. And then there's also the Altars of Lilith, which is basically, those will stay as well. You don't have to rediscover them every season. And that's always been true, the notion around
the benefits you get from a altar of Lilith, like +2 intelligence or +2 dex, those stay with you forever, much like the Renown system of the the extra potion charge or the extra obol capacity. Those stay with you too. You don't have to go get those skill points, go get those potion charges. Those go with you. And what's kind of cool is that what we're talking about is we'll preload you that Renown. So if I could get, I'll make up a number, this is totally made up, 1,000 Renown through Fog of War clearance. When I start up Season 1, my map will be clear like it is in the Eternal Realm, and I'll already have 1,000 Renown in my...
Right, your Renown screen will still show, fog, there are this many areas of the map to be discovered.
Right.
It will just give you credit for the ones that you already discovered, and that will translate into starting the season if you have been playing previously on a character with some amount of Renown.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. And our intention, so those are the base of the two major that you get credit for. Like we're going to...
Altars and Fog.
Altars and Fog. So side quests, those are something that still reset. But we're looking into the future, maybe that's something else we could potentially...
Potentially, I mean, it's something that I think we'll continue to evaluate. Like, some things are fun to do every season, and some things are, after you do them a few times, you feel like, why do I have to do this again? And I mean, I think that's something that it's pretty clear on.
I'm going to stop you right there. Side quests in this game are not very fun. I know that's personal preference. Normally I actually like side quests in this game. I think they're not super enjoyable. So right now, if you are playing D4, ensure you have all your statues and ensure you clear the entire map. Those are the only two things that are going to carry with you. Now, that being said, you're going to get your city waypoints, and then you're going to have to run around and get your other waypoints. You're going to have to do your side quests, and you're going to have to do all your strongholds all over again. Only statues and only map clearance is moving on. Now let's talk about gems, but really this is about storage overall. Listen to this.
Noise while you're thinking.
When we think about gems, there are many colors of gems, there are many qualities of gems, and this can have the effect of taking up lots of inventory space. So what we're looking to do, and this is a longer, we talked about fixes that have different time horizons. This is a longer term one. We're looking to get it in around Season 2.
Oh, okay.
The idea is to change the way you acquire gems so that they are show up in your materials or currency tab rather than in inventory.
Oh, like when you collect veiled crystals. So rather than it even being a thing that you collect in an inventory, it's now just part of your materials.
Right, and then the way that will work is you go to the...
That is so much better.
You go to craft your gem in the same way that you do today, and you just use a certain amount of that material. So it's similar to the amount of equivalent like actual gem inventory slots that you're using now, but as materials. And you can use that to craft the gem that goes into it.
It's kind of a win-win because it's saving you inventory space, but it's also saving you stash space. Because right now, I'm just like filling up my stash with gems.
Yeah.
But now if it's just materials I'm carrying, well, like something there's been discussion around while we're on materials is that there's this notion of, I didn't understand there was caps. Like I am not as hardcore to have 10,000 veiled crystals, but I know some people out there are, and they're realizing like, you can only carry 10,000, and there isn't a way to put veiled crystals into the stash or whatever to do with it. Like, what is the thinking around caps? Because sometimes it's like, we were trying to force you to go do an action. We like much like the obols thing now, like, you go roll something because your more opals are falling, but. I don't think that, it doesn't feel like that's the same for veiled crystal. As an example, veiled crystal, like how do you think about caps and materials?
Yeah, the caps, the materials aren't, there's no particular reason to cap the veiled crystals at 10,000. We're just going to make that bigger.
Yeah, so we're upping the material caps for that, which, we've seen a lot of players, especially players that are like, level 90 plus, as you're going through dungeons, you're obviously going to naturally just pick up a lot of gear, and you're going to salvage a lot of that as well, so you're going to get to those specific caps that are currently in the game. So I know a lot of those changes are going to be really beneficial to players who put in a decent amount of effort.
I'm going to stop it right there. This is great from a gem standpoint, and upping materials is good as well. This entire stream, they don't talk about more stash tabs. They talk about clearing up gems, but they don't talk about actually giving you more inventory space. So on that one, we're going to have to wait and see. For this next topic, I asked the same question because it's ridiculous.
But,
Why are my caches higher level than me?
Yes, that is a very popular one. Why are my caches higher level than me? I can't open my cache. I killed the world
what's in the
boss,
cache.
but I can't open the cache.
What's in the cache, Joe?
This is a bug. So in a before season 1, in an upcoming
A
fix.
planned patch.
Yes, that's right.
In the plan patch?
Plan patch.
You will be able to
in the
open
13 pager? Is that what we're
in a planned patch. you will be able to open caches from world bosses. Now, the gear that's in those caches may still be higher level,
At least
but
you can
there's
sell it or-
yeah, and there's a variety of things you can salvage.
Right.
Some of the stuff in the caches isn't gear. You'll be able to use that immediately.
But at least you can open it and see what's inside.
Yeah.
And it gives you something to work toward. You're like, oh, this thing that's amazing is 3 levels higher than me. I'm
Yeah.
going to go get up to that level and use that gear, right?
Thank you. Last but not least, hardcore.
And we have seen some, whether it could be a disconnect or a player might be dying, randomly. Well, randomly. on their own
Quinn's was
accord,
the worst.
Or,
Quinn's was the worst I've
maybe
seen.
They have a service issue or something from their side. I know that there's like a lot of questions related to disconnection, death protection, and so forth. I know it's a thing that we've been looking at. We've been looking at everyone's clips, even the painful ones where we're like, oh no, that's awful and so forth. But I know
Wins.
we've been looking at potentially doing some work on that from that end.
Yeah, so there are a few cases here. There are, we've seen some cases where a hardcore hero died during teleport, which is a bug. We've seen potentially
That was
some
Quinn.
bugs with situations where you should be immune, but you might have died. We're investigating both of those cases, and once we have identified the root cause, we'll tackle fixes for that. You also mentioned cases where the player disconnects, right? These can be some of the most frustrating situations for a hardcore player because in many cases it is completely outside of your control. It could be an issue with anywhere between you and the server, right?
Yeah.
So those can be especially frustrating. And we have already a mechanism in the game that allows players to escape from boss fights that has very strict controls on it in terms of being a consumable item that's a fairly rare drop, which is called the Scroll of Escape. This is a hardcore only item. It's a consumable scroll. You can use it at any time and teleport to safety. You can bind it to your mouse wheel. It's important to bind it to the...
It's very
Bind it
important to
somewhere.
bind it. I do recommend binding it so that you don't run into an issue where you might potentially use like an emote
Instead of your... I mean, you go out with style. I mean, like,
Yes.
you're going out emoting while you're being killed.
So we have this mechanism already to allow players to try out something that's extremely difficult in hardcore, and that allows us to have things in hardcore that are very challenging.
Right.
Because without something like this, as a hardcore hero who's invested hundreds of hours, why would I go and do something where I might die?
Yeah.
There's certainly lots of risk there, and it's very exciting.
Right.
But, I mean, I could just get a little stronger first,
Sure.
right? So we think that this scroll allows for even more exciting moments.
Scroll of nope. And you're like, nope.
And this is the place where, because it has these controls in terms of being consumable and being a rare drop,
Right.
this is the place where we want to add disconnect protection. So basically, the way that this will work is if you get disconnected, and this is essentially for any reason,
And,
So
and
like,
I
even
want
if you're like your cat pulls the Wi-Fi right out of the wall.
Now, I want to clarify that
Because a dog would never do
it's
that.
not,
That's true. Only cats.
the disconnect case is is a very complex situation in terms of determining what's happening.
Sure.
So this is not perfect situation.
Okay. Lightning
I'm
strike
not
on the
going to
telephone pole
guarantee
may not trigger this.
100%. But what should happen is that when we detect that you've disconnected, if you have one of these scrolls of escape in your inventory, it will trigger, even though you weren't there to trigger it. It will consume the scroll, so you can't just do this as much as you want.
Right.
And it will teleport you to safety.
Right.
So when you log back in after the lightning has subsided, you should be in town.
It's something. For all the hardcore players, it is something. So those are the big points from the hour and a half they did on this stream. Now, a couple of things they didn't talk about. Like I already mentioned, they didn't talk about extended stash space. So being able to store more than just the couple of tabs we have now. And then the big one I keep hearing from the community is search function. Being able to search your items and search for what you are looking for. Also, I'd really like to see a loot filter as well, and a map overlay, all that type of stuff. But really, search functionality and added storage space, those are the ones that are top of mind. All in all, though, what they did say, though, I mean, it is pretty good. The Renown system, I think they're going to have to take it another step further. I think if they gave us all of the statues, all of the map, maybe all of the waypoints and all the strongholds. So then all you got to do is some of the side quests and some of the dungeons. I don't know. Just the Renown system is going to get very tiresome very, very quick. But I thought this was a pretty good stream. I'm happy with the changes we are getting for season 1. And we continue to work on our Wolf Pack Druid. That's the video. Hopefully you were entertained or at least learned something. Aaron, out.